Hold on,
Also, guys,
let me just say before we start, or while they're recording, Cindy, if you're listening to this,
no,
how
no, no,
could you
no,
not send
Katie,
it?
Katie, don't say anything. I started the next one.
Okay, no. All right.
Okay, so guys, what we're going to be doing today, for
Speak
you
on
very
mic.
dedicated souls who actually did show up, we are going through the take-home exam that was given last semester. Now, if I look at all the people that are here, a lot of what I'm going to be saying is really going to be preaching to the converted because all of the errors that were made in the test, I would say, I don't know about the assignment yet. I still have to mark that, and I'm going to do that very, very soon. Um, were not really made by you guys, okay? So what I do want to stress, okay, well, I guess people are going to watch this recording, so I can't say what the main issues I had were, is people didn't reference. Okay, so guys, you need to reference in text and have a reference list at the end, and you need to do Harvard style referencing. Why do I say this? Because we can deduct up to 10% off the mark awarded. Now, as I told you before, I didn't often do the whole 10%. So for example, if someone forgot to do in-text referencing, but they did a reference list at the end that was okay, I might have taken off maybe 1 or 2 marks. Same if it was the other way around. However, if you didn't do both those things, I went just less than 10%. However, this is going to be an exam. It's probably going to be moderated. So just bear that in mind, okay? But as I say, with you guys that are here, it's preaching to the converted. You guys pretty much did referencing. Okay. So we're going to go up to from question 1 to question 5 today. Question 6 is an essay, so I'm not going to do it in this lecture. I'm going to concentrate on it more next week. What we are going to look at is we're going to look at the content in terms of the textbook for each of these questions. And we're going to think of ideal ways to answer these questions, okay? Now, I know the mark scheme is horrible in certain ways, and you would say, okay, 4 marks, I'm going to write for exactly 4 marks. Well, yes, you can, but because this is all take home, they do at a level expect a little bit more from you. So what do I mean by this? They say, let's look at question 1. IT has enabled more flexible forms of organization. Explain the following types of organizational forms. Now, if you have the textbook, right, you will notice that this is what they talk about in terms of decentralization and cross-functional teams. They say decentralization through the creation of semi-autonomous business units. This allows each business unit to focus on a particular market niche and so respond more flexibly and adaptively to the needs of the particular market niche. Now, perfect, I could have this, I could reference it, that's great. They don't quite want that. They want you to paraphrase this in your own words. Oh, welcome, Catherine and Matthew. Yay! We are growing in numbers.
That's all.
Okay, so as I said, I got this straight from the textbook, so it should be 100% right. I'm going to happily do an in-text reference for this textbook where I can put the author's name and the year, beautiful stuff. But that's not exactly what they're expecting from all these things, okay? I was very lenient with the test. What I want you guys to do here is you're going to see this definition in the textbook. You paraphrase it in terms of your own understanding, and then you put the reference. I know it sounds tedious, but again, that is what is expected. If you copy and paste and have it just like this, you're not going to get the full mark. So I'm just saying, because this is pretty much what they say in the paper as well, okay? So we know what decentralization is. We're dividing things into business units as opposed to dividing things as, okay, this is the technical department, they're going to do every single thing IT, they're going to do website, they're going to do database, they're going to do everything and everybody would have their own part. No, business units, you are going to sort of have it more centralized in certain aspects. Like, okay, fine, this is the marketing division for this particular project. So, for example, if you are in, let me think of a very silly one. If you are in Mr. Price, okay, you are the project team that deals with Mr. Price Home, and then you would be the project team for Mr. Price Clothing, for example. Or if we want to take it a little bit further, if you had Facebook, right? There'll be a business unit that only deals with Facebook advertising. So you'd have the IT team coming in, you'd have the marketing team, and they would form a business unit working together. And that falls into the whole cross-functional project teams as well, which they ask you to sort of also discuss. So rather than have each function work relatively independently and pass things over the wall to the next function or process, people are brought together to work in cross-functional teams. And the objective is to encourage faster response rate that lead that make time, for example, new products and developments basically are reduced in terms of the timing. Things can get pushed out a lot faster. So you have people working together. And you would see this a little bit in your Will project, I would say, because you'd have people with different skills. So sure, everybody wants the same end goal in that you want a working application full of requirements, but you would also want somebody who'd be the main systems analyst, right? So this person that mostly deals with the documentation is going to be there. There's you, who's the developer, okay? So let's say hypothetically, yeah, you are the developer, but you are really good with C# and you're really good with front end. So that's your purpose, basically. There'll be somebody else that's very good with app development, so they will handle the Android side. And then there's your client, who is not an IT person at all, but they are obviously contributing in terms of what is required from the project. If you want to make this a little bit more cross-functional, you pull in maybe a marketing person, okay? And a marketing person will be like, okay, these are the ways that you can possibly market the app. So that would be an example of a cross-functional team. Everyone is sitting and working together. Yeah, so I know it's a 4-mark question and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to write so much for these 4 marks. Yeah, how do I say this? The memos generally want a lot more from you in terms of what I've seen. So yes, these 2 answers totally correct, but will you get the full 4 marks? Not necessarily. You need to put it in your own words. You need to reference. Okay, so yeah, hope that helps in some way. Then there's 1.2, and 1.2 says, recommend the following ways of improving ICT exploitation. And both of these are pretty much in your textbook. They say, view IT implementation as an iterative process and encourage user participation. They don't have this as a heading, by the way. So you sort of really have to read and figure out what is it that they exactly mean by this. Because we all know doing projects, it is an iterative process, okay? We don't basically have a set of requirements and then strictly then go to design and then strictly go to coding and then strictly to implementation. We move back and forth a lot of the time, especially after a product is delivered. So once you deliver a product, you still need to go back into that cycle of requirements, design, implementation. Why? Because maybe the product needs extra features. Maybe the product has an inherent security flaw that you need to fix. And a lot of developers generally fix these types of flaws way after release, okay? And there's several reasons for this. It could be the budget, right? Or they're running over time and they're like, okay, fine, we're gonna fix this after maintenance because it doesn't seem like a very big deal. It's something that a certain criminal could miss. So we'll do the security patch straight after maintenance or whatever the story is. So your textbook basically says this in terms of this point here. So there are a number of reasons why it is virtually impossible to design a system upfront that will be implemented on time and on budget and fully utilized once implemented. So it goes on to my whole story of virtually very few IT projects are implemented on time and on budget, right? And fully utilized comes in with, will users actually buy in and use your product? And that's pretty much your end game. Are people going to use your system? You might have done this, right? It might be on time and on budget, but if people hate the system, they're not going to use it. So you have to then go into the point of user participation. So yeah, so in terms of your textbook, their research has demonstrated how most organizations invest heavily in the ES, that's basically enterprise system, guys. You can think of it as just whatever system it is that you want, up until the point where it goes live. Some organizations then invest in a help desk for a limited duration to get users through initial teething problems, which they inevitably experience when they start to use the system. Yeah, great. But they also say few organizations recognize the importance of investing in post-implementation, that is, after the system's delivered. And they fail to see that this is the most important period in which to support practice-based learning through actual use of the system. So if we go to user participation, one aspect of a successful project is having user participation. And this is especially important in terms of defining user requirements and also getting user buy-in. So if users are encouraged to participate during the design phase in order to get buy-in to ensure that the system meets the needs, it's not always easy, right? So it's always better to sort of make them feel involved. So that's basically, in a sense, your answer. But what I'm doing in addition to going through these questions is I'm also looking at what else they could possibly ask you for the take-home exam, right? So if they decide to go ahead and ask you what are the different types of user participation? We looked at three main ones in, I think, our first or second lecture, I'm not sure. There's three reasons why users can not want to participate or have issues, or if we have to look at issues revolving around user participation. We've got legacy thinking. And this basically is, it's difficult for users, as your textbook says, to think out of the box and anticipate how they might do things differently. When they don't really understand the technology. So you either, if it's a new computer system that you are introducing into an environment and users were doing things manually before, it's hard for them to conceptualize how things might work. And if they were using a legacy system or an older system that they now want an upgrade for, what do I say? People hate change. And we know this because we hate change inherently, right? And when I say this, I mean, think of any platform that you've ever used that suddenly had an upgrade and you absolutely hated that upgrade, okay? Who's on Facebook, for example? Me. Okay, Kyle's on Facebook. Come on, guys. You all gotta have Facebook. I know JD doesn't, right?
Yeah,
But
okay,
I know.
Like I was about to say.
Yeah. Okay.
I have Instagram.
You have. I know. Isn't that amazing? I've
And I go
converted
on
you,
it like
JD.
once a week.
See, and before you went on it, you going. Yeah. See, I've converted you. Yeah, I've done something right or wrong,
Not
depends on how you look
necessarily a
at it.
good thing.
So, what do you guys think of the new Facebook layout? Oh, if you use it from your phone, you won't notice. But if you use it from your browser, it's horrible. Okay. I don't know what the hell they've done in terms of design. I personally really, really don't like it. So yeah, I think I would come into the whole legacy thinking there and be like, oh my God, why did they make it look like the mess it looks like? In fact, you guys, if you're sitting on your laptops right now, log on to Facebook and just see how freaking terrible it looks, right? Yeah, if I use it, I use mobile mostly. The web one is really weird to use now. Yeah, exactly. Looks similar to Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, I think they pretty much trying to go that route, but it's not working for Facebook in my opinion. Uh, some people could like it, I suppose, but I don't know. I just had a hard time with it. Um, yeah. Moving on, vanilla implementation. So if users come up with suggestions of how they'd like to do things and it doesn't really fit in with configuration options of the software package, they are likely to be ignored and cause delays and resistance. So some of the really dangerous questions to ask users. I mean, you want to give them the perfect system or system that they idealize in their mind. Like, oh, it will be so amazing if my system can do all these things, but it's often not possible. And they don't understand why it's not possible. I mean, they're looking at you as this IT guru that's going to be able to do absolutely everything that they're asking.
Yeah,
However,
trust me, they
yeah,
do.
yeah, they do. They ask you why can't you do an app that does this and this and this? And you're thinking, oh well, because you would need to pay me a lot more money, first of all, and second of all, it's just not possible given the resources that we have. But you can't say that, right? Um, so what you do is like, oh yeah, we'll look into it. And of course the user feels ignores, which then makes them feel a bit resistant to the actual application. So in terms of gathering requirements, I think this is where it comes in, where you'd have to be a little bit diplomatic or a bit clever with the way you're actually asking for requirements from the user. So I know I'm probably going against most of what you've learned in the last 3 years. But honestly, if you leave it to the user, they're going to ask you for a lot of impossible things. Unless they are semi, I would say, educated in the IT realm and they know a few things, yeah, you would get people asking for the impossible. So how do we combat that? Um, well, you can say, I have a system in mind that can do these things, right? Will this meet your requirements? So you are sort of asking them up front, do you think this will fit in? And then you leave it open-ended for just a little bit. Say, okay, we can add a feature here and we can add a feature here. So in a way, you're guiding the process so that somebody doesn't suggest something out there that you know that's not going to be able to be implemented. And uh, you don't really have a sort of backup to say, oh, well, that can't quite be done. Yeah, I know we try to be very nice people in IT. Motivation. So yeah, at the design stage, it's difficult to motivate users to get involved. And the reason it's difficult to get them involved is because they're likely to be doing their regular jobs, right? So they're using the old system. And if you are like, okay, come, let's try to use the new system. Let me know what you think of it. They're like, oh, well, we don't have time today. We have meetings, etc., etc. So that's very much the big issue, right? But yeah, that's what they're talking about in terms of motivation. So we've gone above and beyond question 1.2, and we are moving on to question 2. I don't really have to do much for question 2 because guess what? You guys have answered question 2 in the assignment. Explain the concept of disruptive technologies with use of examples. Who wants to go with this one? You guys should know this off by heart now. No one? Okay. So I'll put up what I've done here. I've just put the definition, right? Disruptive technology is an innovation that significantly alters the way consumers, industries, or businesses operate. We know this. A disruptive technology sweeps away the systems or habits, and it replaces habits because its attributes are recognizably superior. Examples, well, too early, Catherine. 8:24. Okay, we know we know examples. We've had a whole now playing Sounds of Silence Volume 1. We've had a whole case study with an example, right? We've had Uber, Netflix, Amazon, you name it. There's an example that you can happily use for that one. Now the next one talks about the convergence of computing, telecommunications, and media, and they want to know how this has enabled the development of disruptive technologies. So your textbook says this, right? So literally, this is what the textbook says. The extension of the technological convergence of computing and telecommunications to areas such as media has initiated a further trend to innovatively, whatever, combine the capabilities of the internet with content to better develop the ability of technologies to manipulate, support, and distribute content. Now, we've known this for years, and I'm actually curious because I've never actually checked this in terms of when our textbook was written, because a lot of references seem to be a long time ago. So they talk about collective developments in the fields of computing, telecommunications, and media, and these have been a major force in shaping businesses in recent years, and it becomes the backbone of commerce within the developed world. We know this, right? And it's not a new thing necessarily, I would have to say. So they talk about it being the backbone of commerce within the developed world. I would say it's also the backbone of commerce within the developing countries as well. Because if you think about South Africa, who are basically our if you think of us, right? How many of us use e-commerce? I think that's pretty much by and large the majority. And there was a question in your assignment about social exclusion and Uber, and would social exclusion sort of impact on Uber's profitability? And actually, what did you guys think of that question? Do you think that the whole social exclusion would have impacted Uber's profitability? Yes and no. Okay, nice, Gavin. I said yes because less customers, and that is perfectly fine. There'd be a lower customer base, but by and large, they would still be a highly profitable industry because of the demand, and because it's a something that has become a field that is now a necessity. And the reason also for that is because the other options are, in some cases, prohibitively expensive. So if you're thinking of taking your traditional Mozzie cab, Eagle cab to the taxi, to the airport, you're taking your taxis to the airport, their cost is pretty much double Uber's cost. So if you're from your house to the airport, it's going to cost you 250 to $300 by Uber. At your normal taxis, your normal private taxis are going to cost you something like $600, which is pretty much, if you think of it, half the price of a flight from Durban to Joburg. So yeah, damn, yeah. Oh my gosh, Mohammed, I'm happy somebody knew. what Mozzie Cab was. I know it's a real throwback to us back in the day. Um, yeah. So, recent and emerging ICTs are being used for developing strategies and business models. Um, so they basically are talking about how with using the internet and telecommunications and media, we have now used it extensively in terms of commerce, and we are now using it basically by transforming industries and using it strategically. Um, so yes, we have to relate all of this stuff, right? And I know it's a 6-mark question, guys, which is a little bit annoying, but I think with this question, take the relevant bits here, but also I think do some research and modernize it a little bit. And I'm just saying that because, as you see, your textbook is just slightly outdated in terms of some of its references, which isn't ideal. So, a lot of it you would notice is repetition, repetition, repetition. And at a level, that's a good thing because when this take-home exam comes out, you guys are going to be not very shocked by the type of questions there are. By the way, guys, got some good news for you. Your guys' exam will be a take-home exam.
Yes, thank you. Do you know when we're going to be getting it?
5 days before the proposed date of the exam, right? So
Okay,
what
that's
date
good.
is this item exam, by the way? I'm not really sure.
Not 100% sure.
Yeah, the dates in my head are a bit skewed. So 5 days before that date that they've given you, it's going to be on the portal.
So
Yay!
what if it's on the Monday?
So, yeah, okay, Saturday, Sunday. It'll be out by the Wednesday. Tuesday or the Wednesday, yeah.
So then basically, if it's on a Monday, then we're gonna have to work on it. Those days are gonna include weekend days. Hey, that's what I'm
Yes,
basically asking.
yeah. 20th November. So it'll be out on a Monday. So is the 20th November Friday, Gavin? Gosh. Okay, yeah, so it'll be out on Monday.
Oh, yes, it will.
Okay. So it's fine. You guys will have more than enough time
Oh
for it.
wait, hold on. It's
Yeah.
out on Monday and it's due on Friday.
Yes, it'll be due it's due on that exam day, that 20th of November, it'll be due.
20th, and that's okay. Thank you.
So it'll be out 5 days before that. Yeah. And it'll be really funny if this is the exact same paper that they put out there, which I'm discussing right now.
Sorry,
But
sorry, I
yes,
just missed that. Are we doing them as take-home exams?
yes,
Or all modules?
for all modules.
Ah, awesome. Thank you.
For you guys, yes. Yeah,
Yes.
because I confirmed with Ibrahim, and he's like, yeah, no, all modules will be take home. It's a bit late now anyway for them to change the rule because it's just literally, I think, 1 more week of lectures. So, yeah. So you guys are probably all celebrating in your minds right now.
I'm actually gonna play that
Definitely.
Celebrate song right now.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
no, it's a relief. I mean, you guys wouldn't have wanted to write research. Sorry, trust me on that one. So, yeah, awesome. So research is only 2 assessments. It's just the assignment and the summative project, and for this, it's just the exam. And I think IPMA would also probably be that'll be take home. Yeah, basically all your subjects. Of course, will is going to be different. That I think is going to be only assessed one where you probably have to do the presentation. I'm not sure how that's going to work. It's going to be really interesting. Yeah, the concept of business alignment. And as I've said, what I've done is I've taken this straight from the textbook. And when you do this, guys, please paraphrase. I haven't. Because I've just basically put it out there so we can discuss it. So business alignment concerned with linking and configuring the strategic elements, key organization systems and processes in such a way that their implementation achieves the organization's shared vision and results beyond expectations. And they've put in a reference. Please don't forget the references, guys. I know I've said it a few times and I'm going to say it again. Do not forget the in-text references and the reference list at the end. You don't want to lose 10% for nothing, okay? And yeah, they go on to say that alignment is usually supported these days by information systems and information systems, most of which are computer-based, some of which are computer-based. Oh my God, this text was written a really long time ago. Anyway, then I've just thrown in this sentence here with basically what the benefits are. So what does business alignment do? It helps to improve business processes, reduce operational costs, promotes real-time visibility in terms of business performance. So it's always nice to add an extra thing rather than have less. And as I say, I'm probably going to be preaching to the converted again, but maybe the others will be listening to this recording. Guys, please don't write like 2 lines per answer. The fact that it's take home, and I know it's a smaller mark scheme, is a bit confusing, but try and write as much as possible, or try to put in as much as possible per question rather than less. So you rather always have more than less. So yeah, I just thought I'd put that out there. So there are 5 dimensions that need to be considered in ITIS alignment. So they want us to look at the structural dimension and the social dimension. And we looked at all these dimensions. I think this was in Learning Unit 3. But they want us to look at specifically these 2. And your textbook talks about structural dimension as the degree of structural fit between the technology, business processes, and those who use or are served by technology. And these days, that's pretty much everybody. This degree of fit is influenced by the power and political base and the location of the key players who decide on IS issues. So these guys, Knight and Murray, argue that power is at the heart of the organization and it's not tied to individuals. So by politics, we mean the very stuff, the marrow of organizational processes. By politics, we mean managerial and staff concerns to secure careers, avoid blame, to create success. So they're talking about your organizational hierarchy. So depending on the organization that you are in, what degree of influence do you have? Well, if you're at the very bottom, not much at all, because you're not really involved with making decisions for the technology that you are using. Your CEOs, your CIOs, your managerial divisions, they would be responsible for implementing decisions that are not part of what you are doing. So does it work is the question. Is structural dimension something that affects your lower end workers that are forced to use the technology? Is something that you've got to think about for that particular question. Yeah. So yeah, let me take a really stupid example of this one over here. You guys are students, you are using VC Learn. If you all hate VC Learn, can you boycott it? Can you abandon it? Can you refuse to use it? And if yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I suppose you could, if you want, make this huge political statement and influence every single person on campus and have all of them abandon using VC Learn, and then I don't know.
Yes,
Do you
a
think,
digital strike.
yeah, yeah, but a passive strike, right? Like a non-violent strike.
Well, I'm not making any promises.
Yeah.
I can't strike because I'm in Pretoria.
You can influence the people at VC in Pretoria.
Yeah, I can be like Malema. I can literally just like, you know, shout from the back, literally be there on camera, like on Zoom, shouting in my room.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess at a level, yeah, strikes could happen, but I guess, uh, yeah, in your guys' situation, it's just like, ah, I'm just getting content of VC Learn anyway. It doesn't really affect my life. However, people in certain jobs or industries will be like, oh, they really hate the system. They're going to resist using it, and then basically force management to its knees, um, by actually refusing. And yeah, but obviously it depends on the power dynamic in your institution. We've seen that, uh, yeah, a lot of protests happen when organizations are quite rigid, um, and when there's more flat organizational structures, or less of the structural dimension rather, there's more, I would say, harmony at many levels within organizations. So yeah. The social dimension refers to the state in which business and IT executives in an organization unit understand and are committed to each other's mission and plans. So, how much do you feel part of an organization, and how do you feel in terms of being part of a tribe? So, for example, if we look at you guys are part of the varsity college tribe right now. Okay, soon you won't be. You will be the alumni. You will be the guys who were part of the tribe and are still basically, you know.
What's
Uh,
the tribe?
don't you guys feel like you're part of the tribe?
That gives me Ark vibes.
So you guys are part of, yeah. So when you join a company, right? So some of you guys are working right now. JD, um, Matthew, a few of others. Um, do you guys feel part of a tribe when you guys are going to work? Kyle, I think you as well.
I feel
Um,
part of a family, but it's civilized. Yeah, it's civilized.
at least, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. You guys feel part of a tribe, right? Part of, um, we are collectively working together for this common goal, right? Yes, no, maybe, yes,
Yes, it's a
okay.
cult. Yes.
It's a cult. Yeah. So that's pretty much what I'm getting at. And that's pretty much the social dimension where everybody is pretty much committed in terms of um, reaching a common goal. And generally, this is a big thing in organizations. How are we going to take our IT and our business units and push them together and make them understand each other, and um, us work in harmony toward this collective goal? Now, let's take it to your present situation on campus, and let's look at your will project, right? And this is pretty much the same example. Do you feel that you are part of a tribe in your will group?
Um,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. The cult of the coding ones. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
it's more like a
Yeah,
cult
we're
than a
all
group.
working toward a common goal. Yeah. Pretty much, as I say, the same thing. A collective. Yeah. Exactly. Now, we did this activity at the very, very beginning when there was much better lecture attendance, mind you. And yeah, question 4. We looked at WeFix. Do you guys remember WeFix? Guys, you must remember WeFix. This amazing website.
Yes, I remember it.
Yes. Some of you did the activities, some of you didn't. Okay, so basically, if you look at this excerpt here, founded in 2006, which is actually now a while ago, Refix has grown into a national brand respected as the most experienced Apple, Huawei, LG, and Samsung repair and servicing provider in South Africa. we have over 11 years experience in device repair with stores nationwide. We are born fixers. We fix phones, tablets, smartwatches, and Macs and things in between. We do it fast and well, and it gets us noticed. Why? Because we love to make it better. Amazing, right? So I find like question 4.1 is a little bit of a redundant question because these guys are so far engrossed in terms of technology, but they talk about listing 5 drivers for WeFix in adopting IT. Now, what is a bit annoying about some of these questions is you might get a list like so in your textbook, right? And these are basically the drivers for adopting IT. It reduces cost, increases market share, helps with information gathering, improves range and quality of products, increased speed in dispatch of goods, improve trading relationships. And yeah, this is obvious, right? But you see this question and you think, okay, this is 5 marks, but they're specifically asking you to say, list 5 drivers for WeFix in adopting IT. So my question to you guys is, do you think it's sort of acceptable to just list these, or list them and then talk about how it affects WeFix? I mean, what would you do? List and state how it affects. Yeah, that would be the ideal. But again, I know, guys, the mark scheme is annoying, but you guys have time. 5 days. So yeah, I would say that's how you would answer that question. 5 drivers, so you list the 5 drivers and a little bit of an explanation on how it would affect specifically WeFix. So yeah, I know that should actually be like a 10-mark question, but it's very deceptive with these take-home exams in terms of your mark scheme and how much is exactly required. Okay, you guys are cloud fundies, right? You guys have done 4 semesters probably using cloud. So you can actually tell me this, how the use of cloud computing will benefit WeFix. So we don't have to research at this point or anything. How do you think that cloud would benefit WeFix?
Increase scalability.
Mm-hmm.
It's cheaper in the long run. It's safer because it's delocalized.
Mm-hmm.
You can, okay, I already mentioned this, but as the business grows, you don't have to use a lot of money in the beginning. You can just
Mm-hmm.
use a small amount until the business grows, and it can scale with the business. It can also scale with customers that join. So the more customers there are, you don't have to go and now buy a whole new hard drive. You just allocate more space
Mm-hmm.
as
Awesome,
necessary.
JD. So see, if you had your answer, but you put it down and you found a source, great. But you need to reference. I know it's annoying because
What?
yeah, you're saying
That's
it
lying.
from what I'm not.
No, that's
Weirdly
lying.
enough.
It's lying to
So
reference.
yeah, you still have to reference because at a level, the way this take-home exam is structured, it's structured very much like an academic piece of work. Gavin's Brain 2020. So it comes across a lot better. But yes, what you're saying is 100% true. But if you can quote it from another source, it sort of solidifies your point. That makes more sense to you. So
Okay,
yeah,
that kind of does.
Gavin, all your data is secured and be fetched from anywhere if you have access. Gavin's brain, and then Gavin, it has to be somebody else's brain too, just to make it a little
JD's
quote,
brain, JD
quote
and
the
Gavin's
cloud
brain.
textbook. You can even quote this the textbook, yeah, which basically they talk a lot. As you can see, they have this whole thing on cloud computing, right? But you have to, of course, look at how the use of cloud computing will benefit Refix. And in terms of drivers and benefits, they list these three in your textbook. So mobile interactive applications, which are required to constantly be available to react in real time to users on non-human sensors, rely on relatively large sets of data. But I think even if you don't have an entirely huge, large set of data, you can still benefit from cloud. But of course, as I said before, you have got to have references backing what you say up. Even though I would know it's true, yeah. Very much like what we did in research, guys, with that whole thing where I mentioned that example where I can visibly see 10 people in front of me that are not wearing masks during COVID, and I can't state this in an academic paper. Even though I've seen it, I have to reference somebody else. Yeah, annoying, I know. Oh, and remember to do that pretty much in your research summative project as well. A lot of references for whatever it is that you guys talk about. And great, we have a scenario question. You know, I love these sometimes, but I feel like they sometimes don't give us a lot of information. You have been appointed as IT manager at a multinational consumer goods retailer tasked with the implementation of a new system that handles orders from local distributors and global customers via a website that ships products internationally. Great. So you are kind of an e-commerce website. The new system will result in considerable changes to the retailer's traditional rigid routines and procedures and requires a rethink of the organizational culture. However, this will still enable the retailer to become more customer focused and subsequently increase domestic and foreign revenue. You will need to justify costs and benefits of the new system to the stakeholders. So they suggest two issues your global customers would be concerned with when ordering through your website. Now, they don't have a set answer for this, as you can imagine in your textbook. However, I did get a really nice answer from Google for this exact same thing. Here it is. So what are two issues that can happen? Well, you could have deficient checkout processes, often singled out as the main cause of people not buying through somebody's websites. But many other problems faced by e-commerce could be slow load times, poor return policies, lack of customer warranties, or absurd requirements, which can be problems that make online shopping difficult. So, as I say, if you can explore any one of these concepts, of course, referencing them. So these would be issues that your global customers could have, especially if it's an international customer. And generally, when we buy from an international website, we won't look at buying at pretty much any international website because we don't know what their policies are. Like, for example, if we buy from takealot.com, we know what their returns policy is. We know that within X amount of time, I can possibly return my product and I could get a refund. However, what is the situation if I'm buying from a company that's overseas? What is their policy? How well do they handle returns? Have you guys bought from wish.com? It's not a bad experience, I have to say. It's I've bought a couple of times from wish.com. It was horrible. Why? What happened to you? That was so horrible. Did you get your product? I think one of my products, you had to return the bag. Okay, well, shipping is bad, yeah, because they do it via our postal service, and our postal service is atrocious at the moment. So yeah. Well, at least you got to return it, Mohammed. I think that's the good thing. Um, and look, I think the thing about Wish, or the nice thing, is they do give you refunds. So if you say it's not shipped for any reason, they do 4 months for a bag I didn't use. Okay, yeah, yeah, that is pretty off. Yeah, so lag times definitely would be an issue. You don't know what their policies are. So, okay, let's move away from Wish. If it's another random company, I mean, because Wish is quite popular, right? Um, I don't know if you guys heard of this other company, AliExpress. It's a lot like Wish. Works pretty much the same way. Um, yeah. Uh, the issue with some of these companies is we don't know what their customer policies are. And in general, if you want to return something, or you're looking to um, know what their policy is in terms of keeping your information safe, that would be a big concern. There was a site that one of my relatives actually went on, and because she'd put her credit card information there, she saw I think 10,000 going off her account, off her credit card account from the site for absolutely no reason. So yeah, those things are a little bit concerning. I mean, of course, it ended up being resolved, but it's always a bit of a worry, I think, at the back of your mind, especially with companies that you're not sure about in terms of um, how they are actually protecting your information. So generally, nowadays, when you sign up for websites or sign up to pretty much anything, you get that whole, you can log in with Facebook or log in with Gmail, or sorry, log in with Google. And when you see that, guys, I just want to get a feel from you guys. Do you guys feel safe when you see a website that has that? Log in with Facebook or log in with Gmail? Yes. Okay, certain sites, yeah. Um, do you guys feel safe with your information being on Facebook and Google? Google, yes. Okay. Yeah. What's the worst that could happen? Well, yeah, I guess at a level that's true. The nice thing is, the bigger the company, the less issues you're going to have with security of data, or the quicker they would be to respond to your queries. So there was a few years ago where there was a lot of maintenance work on Gmail. So if they were once or twice, it would say your account is unavailable. This is quite a few years ago, actually. And the second you query Google, or second you basically try and tell them, look, what the heck's going on, within 6 to 8 hours, they pretty much have responded to your query. So yeah, the bigger and the more reputable the company, the less issues you would have with that sort of thing. Differentiate between the nature of strategic and tactical changes that will result from a new system. Now, your textbook talks a lot in terms of strategy and tactics. I found this definition as well, which I found a lot easier to understand and wrap my head around than the ones in the textbook. Of course, you guys can happily read through that. So strategy is the overarching plan or set of goals. Changing strategies is like trying to turn around an aircraft carrier, right? It can be done, but not quickly. Tactics are your specific actions or steps that you undertake to accomplish your strategy. So they basically are things that are going hand in hand with each other. And I think it's important to know the terminology behind some of these things because, well, we can then implement them very much better. So strategy, overarching goal, tactics, how do I get to my overarching goal? So you're going to differentiate between the nature of strategic and tactical changes that will result from the new system that they speak about over here. So in this case, you can reference the definition of strategy and tactics. However, over here, everything that you write is stuff that's pretty much from your own mind that you could have got from another source and you could reference, or you don't have to. No, you're thinking, oh, she's contradicting herself. No, but according to a question like this, they're very much saying, yeah, this is 6 marks. So first you're going to talk about what strategic and tactical changes are, and then of course you're going to go on to the specific system and what you think, what strategic and tactical changes can arise from that particular system. Okay, so now they're saying defend your view that the new systems will not suffer from the IT productivity paradox. And let's look at what that is. The IT productivity paradox. Okay, so they have a big lot to say on the IT productivity paradox in your textbook. So they say the poor returns that many organizations experience from their investments in information systems gave rise to what they've termed the productivity paradox. So basically they've put all this money in and they're not seeing significant return on investment that they thought they would, right? So over the past few decades, many organizations have investigated the productivity paradox. And they give you an example. So for instance, in 1988, the OECD found IT expenditure was not linked to overall productivity increases. Gardner also found that the average return on investment in IT was around 1% for the period 1985 to 1995. Yeah, and nobody has produced any evidence to support the popular myth that spending more on IT will boost performance. Okay, so yeah, it's hard to measure that actually, I would say. So the dispute over the existence of the productivity paradox centers on a number of issues. And yes, as I say, it's hard to measure. First, measurement errors. So it's argued that conventional statistics ignore the number of aspects as to why organizations invest in IS as faster services. Sorry, guys. Cat drama. So such as faster services, flexibility, variety, and information access. So, yeah, how do we measure that if I spend more money on IT, I'm going to get more productivity from my workers? Right? It's not an easy thing to measure. So measurement issues could be a big thing, I would say. I mean, you could do a survey. I suppose now, yeah, you could do this as a research topic actually at some point. Does increase in IT actually increase performance? Second, many organizations have little long-term experience of multiple types of IS, meaning that at firm level, there's not much data to base estimates upon. And of course, poor quality IS that are hard to use and understand may mitigate any benefits that occur. So yeah, I think that's basically, in a nutshell, what you can say. There also are lags in learning. So what you have to say is defend your view that the new system will not suffer from this productivity paradox. So you're actually going against what is being said. So you're going to talk about how you can measure um, how the users would feel about using the system, and whether you think that they would basically increase their own productivity. There's many things you can actually talk about in terms of these points over here, I would say. But yeah, 5 marks. I know it's a bit annoying seeing these types of mark schemes. Um, I know you guys don't love writing, so uh, I guess I could understand your viewpoint in terms of all this theory. So explain the following aspects related to the benefits you expect the new system to offer. How will the new system contribute positively to the retailer? And they talk about active benefits realization. And this is a little bit important because we did cover it in Learning Unit 6 or 7, I think. So they talk about the first aspect, which I'm going to say, how will the system contribute positively to the retailer? And in your textbook, they say the process of organizing and managing business activities is such that potential benefits can be identified and necessary changes can be made to deliver those benefits. So it reviews whether it requires a review of whether IT or IS projects can identify whether they were carried out well, the benefits claimed were achieved, and additional benefits can be achieved, or additional can be achieved, improvement of the system. Let me just put it in my own words here. Can be achieved in terms of the actual benefits. Now, how will the system contribute positively? You can spin your own version of why you think this is the case. Of course, if they're moving from a manual system to a totally computerized system, it's going to have great benefits. But you are also talking about it in terms of our benefits realization. And they have mentioned this beautifully in your textbook and in my slides. They talk about active benefits realization as one of the benefits management techniques. So what is active benefits realization? So it's basically the principle, or it's basically that the principal stakeholders of the information system are identified at the onset and that they accept and agree their continuous involvement. Active, based on participative, dynamic evaluation and decision making, and benefits realization, focused on the business objective. Now, if you get a question that asks you about the steps of active benefits realization, these are the steps of active benefits realization. And these include identifying the primary stakeholders and gaining their commitments. So this is either the system sponsors, the champions, the users, whoever's basically involved with the system in a big way. Ensure line management creates the initial business picture. So basically, the stakeholders would know the process or processes. Ensure that the financial and project picture are completed through a collaborative process. So you are working together with the stakeholder. Arrange near continuous participative evaluation or assessment. So basically, you are going to be showing the stakeholders. An example of this would be you working with the stakeholders to basically not just teach them how to use the system, but basically gather information for them from them in terms of what they would like from the system. Yeah, so basically these would be your steps. And if you had a question that talked about what are the steps of ABR, or active benefits realization, that would be the steps. So we spoke about leadership abilities, and they say summarize the following leadership abilities you have that make you the ideal manager of the technology-led innovation. Now, this is a funny question because it's 8 marks and they give you the first 2 answers. And then if you take a look at, yeah, basically the rest of the question, there are actually only 3 more that you are putting in. Ability to understand the time frames for diminishing returns as they relate to barriers, ability to understand the strengths and weaknesses of incremental technologies, ability to recognize pioneering technologies that could provide opportunities or pose threats. But as I say, they pretty much gave you 2 already. So maybe your question is the same as mine. Why is it 8 marks? And what would you do to get those full 8 marks? Well, the one thing you would say is you would say that these are examples of innovations systems leadership. Okay, so the following that we are going to talk about are examples of innovations systems leadership. So you're going to maybe then do 2 or 3 more lines about what innovation systems leadership actually is. So you're going to happily define that concept, and then you are going to list the following. At least that's how I would do it. Okay. Yeah, 5.6 we've spoken about a lot in one of our lectures. Explain how you would go about characterizing the organization's culture, including cultural artifacts. Yes, we spoke about this. So explain how you would go about characterizing the organization's culture, including cultural artifacts. So if we look at culture as a whole, people live and work in communities, social, geographical, professional, organizational, industrial. Therefore, communities all have values and norms. And norms are unwritten rules people use to follow and guide their behavior. So typically norms refer to behaviors like treatment of others, conduct in certain company or circumstances, and importance attached to certain symbols or objects. So in terms of organizational structures, you're going to go ahead defining this. An organization's culture is intrinsically tactic, making culture as a concept abstract. So basically, it's your steps taken, because we did talk about tactical, tacit. I'm going a bit nuts here, so ignore me. Okay, this is your cultural artifacts in terms of your organization's culture, your set of norms and cultural beliefs that your organization would have. And when I say culture, I don't mean your different backgrounds. I'm talking about the culture of the actual organization. And they rely on the stuff I've just highlighted. The stories told, the symbols used, the rituals followed, the organization and power structures present, the control systems used. What do I mean by this? So the rituals and routines followed. So you guys at Varsity College, what rituals do we have? Well, the one glaringly obvious one is Meridian Hour, which for some reason we still have even though we're virtual. Okay, so doesn't sound cultist at all. Yeah. So I mean, when somebody says Meridian Hour, you know exactly what they mean. However, if you were in another setting altogether, they would have no idea what the heck you are talking about. The symbols used, including language. Okay. Can you guys think of any symbol, if you see, reminds you of Varsity College? Logo, yes. Okay. So if you see the logo, you think, campus, you know. Yeah, definitely. That would be one of them. language, we all, even though we don't know it, we speak in varsity college language, Sam Brown's, yes, yeah, which is now something different. And if we have to think about the language we use, abbreviated modules, yes, ADDB, APDS, SUN would be abbreviated. Yeah, definitely. I'm going for my SUN lecture. I'm going for my ADDB lecture. Other people won't know that in other organizations. Also, I'm going to the LAN. A lot of I think campuses in Durban and in South Africa generally they use LAN for the computer labs anyway. But yeah, so yeah, you get it. It's language that's very specific. The organization and power structures present, so you guys all know who to talk to if you have any issues or queries. You know that you can talk to the lecturer, and then you can go to the PM. In this case, it's Ibrahim, and the head of IT, which is Serena, and then of course there's the principal, who's Rajesh. It's actually basically the power structures that you would know in an organization. So yeah, beautiful. So what do they want to know here? Back to the question. Explain how you would go about characterizing the organization's culture, including cultural artifacts. So you're going to talk about how you would characterize that specific company's culture and cultural artifacts in the case study. They don't give you a lot to go on, so a lot of it you have to sort of, in a way, make up. Yeah, I know it doesn't sound great, but that's pretty much what they mean. Now, for the very last thing that we're going to do in this lecture, we're going to look at a very, very weird extract. So in July, a major electricity supplier in Johannesburg was hit by a ransomware attack, depriving millions of power. And last month, a leaked UN Security Council report named South Africa among the countries, number of countries targeted by North Korean hackers who infiltrated cryptocurrency exchanges. When the Cambridge Analytica scandal became headline news, it emerged that the data of 60,000 South African internet users had been compromised. Kenya appeared to be a laboratory for the company's operations, an insider admitting they ran just about every element of the 2013 and 2017 presidential campaigns. Now, they packed in a lot of different information in one paragraph, right? And what they want us to do is differentiate between crackers and hackers with reference to the above. Now, I know in none of your courses we never did this whole breakdown of the different types of hackers, which is weird because we seem to do that now in the new degree structure. So basically, I don't really like the terminology they use in this particular course in terms of crackers and hackers, because they sort of define hackers as your programmers who have the intricate knowledge and basically hack for the good of mankind. They basically more ethical. They basically have good intentions in a sense, because they basically would hack into a company if a company hires them to basically see what the security flaws are. However, in most cases, they've separated them in terms of black hat, gray hat, white hat hackers. White hat, the ethical guys, gray sort of in the middle, because they would find a vulnerability and sell it. Black hat, obviously, are criminals. Crackers, they're defining in terms of this context that we're speaking in the question as hackers that are in it for criminal activity only. So your crackers are criminal activity only, and they could also fall into the realm of being either experienced or script kiddies who basically buy programs to infiltrate systems. So they're not really your technical guys, but basically their agenda is pretty much crime. So what you're going to do, of course, you differentiate between these two terms, and you basically link it to the extracted above by saying who you would say are hackers and who you would say are crackers. Okay, 6.2, recommend encryption as a countermeasure such, oh gosh, am I reading this wrong? Sorry. Recommend encryption as a countermeasure such security attacks. So guys, is this a statement or is it a question? Please help me out here. Crack is bad unless with cheese. Nice one, Gavin. Okay, so what you're going to do, despite how badly phrased this question is, you're going to talk about how encryption can countermeasure these attacks. Now, you guys literally have coded this. Remember, guys, Angular. Do you remember Angular, guys? 6.2. Do you remember how? Yes, that's beautiful. You coded your system to hash and salt passwords. And do you know what, yes, okay. So do you know what that means? When you hashed that password, right? The password that's stored in your database is not the actual plain text password that the person put in. It's the hashed and salted password. And why is this important? Well, when somebody breaks into your MongoDB and they try to steal the user's passwords, they're only going to get the hashed version of that password in the password file. Facebook does this as well. And if there's a hashed version of a password, it is almost impossible to crack. And the reason is because there's no decryption key. So there's an encryption key. In other words, it encrypts your password and you get the hash value. But you can't go the other way and decrypt. You can't decrypt backwards, if you like. It's completely unique. It's very, very difficult to crack hashed passwords. So yes, you can use that as an example, actually. So yeah, awesome. So see how much you guys learned in APDS? Okay, guys, any questions? Things were
No
learned,
questions.
yes. No questions.
For
Everyone
me
good?
so far.
Oh, you guys are all good? Okay, all good on your side, all good.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks.
so guys, basically what I want you guys to do, because you have some degree of time right now, I want you guys to go through the item content. I've put up everything under files on Teams. Let me know if there's anything you'd like me to go over again in terms of the learning units. Preferably tell me this before the lecture. And we will carry on with revision. We're going to carry on with this monster of a question next week, which is basically the essay on ITIL. So yeah, we're going to go through this next week and probably 1 or 2 more past papers, and just so that you guys are 100% prepared for this exam. Okay, we all good, people?